That's Tom Cruise on a plane being spun around with the wind's velocity crushing his body as he's trying to act. Or maybe he's 1,000 feet underwater and he's being crushed by water as
my hands are literally sweating as you're saying that.
Spin through a submarine.
Yeah, and I think, and that's the thing, right? I think Dead Reckoning, they were really kind of revealing the magic trick so much in the marketing. They put out that behind the scenes featurette like 6 months before the movie came out of him just doing this jump. And obviously when you watch it, it's spectacular, but you're also just like, oh man, like I wish they held back. I wish I didn't see this. I wish it was an IMAX because that didn't have an IMAX ratio that was adjusting. This one is going to have that.
I don't know if it was the best stunt that we had seen Tom do, but this biplane sequence, goddamn. What a moment. Like it lives up to what you've been being teased for so long.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. We are here. We have made it to the very end, to the final mission, and we're so damn happy to finally be talking about this movie. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me today are my fellow IMF agents. They are Agent Shahbaz.
Good evening.
And Agent Anthony.
What's up?
Now, what's up, man? I'm an agent.
He's undercover, man. He's the mole. Anthony's the mole. If there's a mole, it's Anthony. He's giving me mole vibes.
I am not the mole.
I'm getting mole vibes for sure.
And that's all I can say.
That's mole talk right there.
Hold on a second. I cannot confirm or deny any actions without the secretaries.
But I did it. Double agent, triple agent, quadruple agent. Who knows?
Who knows? Anthony's going to start like mouthing things to us like Billy Crudup in Mission Impossible 3. Like, Anthony, we can't, it's a podcast. People can't hear what you're saying, dude. You have to say it out loud. I can't believe we're here. This is, again, I feel like there's been so many films that have come out in the last few years, well, the last, I guess, 6 years of us doing the show, that this is one that like almost predates the movie podcast. That actually is these two movies that we were talking about, obviously Dead Reckoning and The Final Reckoning, this being, the final mission. This was announced on February 1st, 2019. So this actually predates the movie podcast as an entity, which is absolutely nuts. And then we obviously know that nothing happened in 2020, nothing happened in 2023, nothing happened in 2024, nothing happened to delay these movies at all. But it's crazy to think that the original Dead Reckoning and Final Reckonings were slated for July 23rd, 2021 and August 5th, 2022. In what worlds were these films going to be ready? Even if everything was going perfect.
I feel like at this point, Tom Cruise and McHugh are just like, thank God it's done. Like, even though they love making movies and doing all this stuff, it's just these last two films were such a struggle for them to get going and get out and all the things that happened around it. I think they're just relieved that we finally have the last of this franchise at the moment, and we can like experience it. And now I could go do other things, like they can do other things. That's a big thing about like when you make these movies, especially like Mission Impossible, they take so long, and especially with all the delays they experienced, they must be excited that it's finished.
Yeah, they must be excited. We know that, just last week they wrapped, like they actually locked the picture. They finished working on it like 3 days before the premiere in Tokyo. So it's like they are right down to the wire, just as an IMF Ethan Hunt agent would be, right at the very end to final deadline, getting this film locked in. Shea, this has been a journey. You and I, our first review here on YouTube, back before Anthony was part of us, says before we became the movie podcast, was our review of Mission Impossible Fallout. And what a film to kick things off of. What's been the last 7 years like for you being on this journey, waiting, hoping for what this final mission would be?
I'm just happy to be alive. I think that's what I'm grateful for, to finally get to see the final Mission Impossible film to our knowledge, of course. This is a journey that it felt like it would never end. I'm like, man, why is it taking so long? Like, I just kept getting frustrated and trying to figure out, like, when is this movie going to come out? But man, I'm glad that the day has finally come for McHugh and team to just unleash this upon the world.
You know, you think back to what Rebecca Ferguson said about, like, you know, obviously she loves the Mission Impossible films, but they take so long to make and to come out. And, you know, when Top Gun Maverick came out, that feels like years and years ago at this point, which it was. 2022, that film came out. They obviously shot it before, but that year at CinemaCon in 2022, Tom was on the biplane, on the yellow biplane that is on the Final Reckoning poster and a huge part of this film, talking about, you know, thank you for being here. We're going to show you Top Gun Maverick. We'll see you at the movies. That's still 3 years from when this film was going to be out, and 3 years from when we saw him on stage talking about McHugh and honoring him at the CinemaCon with an award. But like, what a journey it's been to get here. Let's not waste any more time. Of course, we are the Movie Podcast. You can catch brand new episodes, reviews, and interviews, and all the latest movies and series. If you like what we're doing, give us 5 stars. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you are. The Movie Podcast is there. And a like goes a long way for us. That means the world to us if you could support us that way. If you ever see our videos on TikTok or on Instagram, engage with them too. Again, that goes so far for us. And if you share what you see, if you like it, that just means so much to us. So thank you for everyone who has been doing that. We have some great interviews coming your way for this movie. We have Simon Pegg and Palm Klementieff making her return to the show. Yeah, they're great interviews. You don't want to miss them. And we'll have great segments of those going out on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter for you. So you do not want to miss it. Everything you need to know is in the show notes below, including our Discord, where you could follow us, where you could talk all about this film. And yes, Shea, I could tell by your face, I did give that word a little bit of extra spice. I did give it a little bit of accent
there. You're like, a day now, day.
I was just like, oh, Simon Pegg. No, I'm just kidding. With all respect to Simon Pegg, I will not do an accent for you. But again, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, a million years in the making. Let's get right into it. Shahbaz, start us off with your first reaction to Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and keep it spoiler free.
Sounds good. You know, Tom Cruise continues to torture himself for our entertainment. What is wrong with this man? He is just unstoppable. Absolutely unstoppable. The things that he's doing at 62 years old, I can't even do at 33. I can't even jump on a biplane, hang, take the force of the wind that's coming at you. He's running on treadmills. Also, that treadmills, anytime I see a treadmill now, I just think of Top Gun Maverick because he kills it on that treadmill too. But this is such a crazy movie because you're seeing all of the Mission Impossible movies kind of just collide now. There are answers happening to previous Mission Impossible films, and you see the trailers and the marketing really kind of guide you there. They're really telling you this is a generation of Ethan Hunt that we're now kind of seeing culminating in one film. Does all of it work? Not completely, but there are still some really jaw-dropping stunt sequences. You will be holding your breath. There's a lot of fantastic editing that really combines multiple moments that are happening in the film together that really just feel like a head-on collision in the best way possible. And then you have somebody like Rolf Saxon coming back from the first Mission Impossible movie as William Dunlow, and what you think might be just a small little, gag moment, he ends up being really the heart of this movie. And there's so much beauty to his character that seeing him on screen again, it fills you with joy. Someone that might have felt like a throwaway character in the first movie, just like, hey, we need someone to just, go to the bathroom every few minutes.
To really have to go take a shit.
you know, it turned into this really beautiful character that really becomes part of the team. You have a lot of great people that are they are coming back from the previous Mission Impossible movies to really just add more and more to their characters. This is a intense movie. This is a gripping film, and it'll just be one of the best things that you can see in the summer, I'd say, for sure.
There's something you said there, Shea, where it's just like The Final Reckoning feels like a head-on collision of all the other Mission Impossibles. And I think that is so damn hammer or nail on the head, however you want to say it, because this movie is combining so many different plot points from different missions, and not that it feels overwhelming, but you're getting answers for things that you're just like, oh, that's an interesting connection. We're connecting to 3 this way. We're connecting to 1 this way. We're getting a little tease of stuff that happened in 5 and 6 and so on and so forth. And it's really cool to see all of the spider web of Mission Impossible films kind of really filling in and coloring in all the spots on it. And I want to say a huge, shout out to Eddie Hamilton, editor extraordinaire, who is just look up his filmography. He's done such incredible work. But to balance all of that in this film is a huge undertaking. And I remember years ago, back in the earlier days of the pandemic, when we reached out to Eddie to be on the show, and he said, hey, listen, I'd love to, but I'm in the middle of editing Mission Impossible and I don't have time. And now seeing these 2 films that he's been editing, I totally get it. Dude was busy putting in a million hours of work on this to make everything try and be as coherent as possible. And Shea, you shouted out the scenes where, you're kind of between 2 different teams or 2 different, things happening, but it still works and the action is up and the intensity. It's a lot. Like you said, does it all work? We're going to talk about that. But yeah, just holy shit.
Tom Cruise he's a unique person. We heard him talk at CinemaCon, and it's just like, this guy is so passionate about creating the theater experience, and he pushes the limits of his body in this movie. Action sequences in this film are jaw-dropping. Like, when you look back and say, okay, like, oh, it must have been green screen. Like, no, that's Tom Cruise on a plane being spun around with the wind's velocity crushing his body as he's trying to like act. Or maybe he's 1,000 feet underwater and he's being crushed by water.
My hands are literally sweating
to, like,
as you're saying that.
Spin through a submarine. It's just like, this man has a passion for filmmaking, and he has a passion for creating that movie experience in the theater. And I think, when I look back at right now, the movies that have come out, this is the action movie of the summer. It is the quintessential Mission Impossible that you want on the big screen. Like, the sequences, we didn't get to see it in IMAX, but I can imagine what they look in IMAX. Like, it just must be engrossing to be in the sky as he's flying around and he's trying to like battle a plane. Like this, it's just crazy stunts. And you just kind of like look at Cruise and say, man, this guy defies all odds. And when I think of all the Mission Impossible films and the franchise, it is a franchise that just keeps going and going. No matter what movie comes out, it's somewhat better, or it somewhat challenges itself. It's never stale, or it never has like, oh, we'll keep it slower at this point, or maybe we'll backtrack on certain elements of who Ethan Hunt is. This guy's grown so much from what we saw in the first Mission Impossible to now. Like, I can't even imagine like Ethan Hunt this is the same Ethan Hunt, right? Going back into this film, like, it's action sequences are the best part of the movie. I think the weakest part of the film is the story. I think McHugh really doesn't divert from what we got in Dead Reckoning. And I think the entity and Gabriel are not the strongest antagonists. And they lack the gravitas that you would expect the last film to be in the Mission Impossible series. But overall, it's a fantastic movie. Like, it's unbelievable.
I want to jump off from that point of the story, Anthony, because I think we were all in agreement when we left that this movie throws a lot at you, and I think it's one that you really do have to see twice to really fully absorb and kind of to get the anxiety and the shakes that you get from going into a movie this big that it can do for you. But you had a character like Solomon Lane who really owns Fallout, who really owned Rogue Nation, and you had Henry Cavill obviously in Fallout, and Fallout being kind of, I think, the top of that Mission Impossible pyramid of just something that delivers story, action, heart, everything. And in Dead Reckoning, we're kind of given the story of the entity and Gabriel being his chosen disciple, and it's going to be Ethan Hunt versus a machine. And you get a lot of teases that happen in that film. A lot of setups of, okay, Kittredge is back, and now the White Widow's in play. And, we, spoilers for Dead Reckoning only, we lose Ilsa. She's not back. So there's that whole of like, okay, we don't have that character anymore. We have Grace, who's kind of taken over her spot. We have Shea Whigham's character who's coming in, and Greg Tarzan Davis, who's here as well too, who they're kind of like the other antagonists in Dead Reckoning, and they're showing up here. And there's a lot of plot points that the Final Reckoning needs to pick up on. And I think my biggest disappointment, asterisk, is that it doesn't get enough time to really pay them off or really even, speak to them, right? There's a lot of things where, again, not getting into spoilers, we're just like, oh, they didn't even address that, or they didn't even talk about that. It's interesting that we didn't even, mention this character or this moment or this plot point that you set up that felt like it was going to be bigger, but we didn't get it here. And I think Gabriel and the entity really get, kind of put in the background to this, to the stunts, to, Ethan going up against the clock to stop basically the world from ending. It's just like, that's kind of where we're at. That's the focus of the film. And it almost feels like McHugh and Tom were just like, okay, listen, we gave people too much. We said the entity way too much in Dead Reckoning. Let's try and step it back and just kind of focus on moments with Ethan and giving the drama as big of a scale as we would to the action set pieces, which this film definitely does do that. And you're going to be palm sweaty, you're going to be stressed while watching it. But I think there's a lot of things that don't get a proper payoff. And I think that's where it's kind of left me a little just like, oh, I wish we got that feeling a little bit more, because they spent so much time connecting threads to the other films, but not the one that was originally part one to this one.
One of the things that we were all discussing was the character of the entity, the character of Gabriel. Tom Cruise going up against a machine, the implications there are really cool, and they can create some amazing storylines here. But it feels like in this one, like you're saying, Daniel, they take a bit of a step back and they introduce elements to the entity that I wasn't a huge fan of. I think even the writing alone didn't really feel like this is Christopher McQuarrie kind of creating, like we have now cults that are dedicated to the entity, and it just kind of feel like it came out of nowhere, considering I believe this is only taking place like 2 months based on the trailer, I think, after Dead Reckoning. So it feels like so much of the world has changed by the time we get to the Final Reckoning that you're like, oh, has it been years? Like, what's going on? And it hasn't been that long. So you feel like you're missing a lot of context. And when you have a part two, essentially, of a film, missing context can feel really jarring. And when you're trying to watch this movie, you're like, well, why are these characters here? We're getting a lot of great new characters in this movie. We have Tramell Tillman, we have Hannah Waddingham that are coming in. Tramell, I think, one of the absolute standouts in this movie. We just got to see him in Severance. He was here in Toronto recently too to show off a couple episodes. Really such a joyous character, great chemistry with Tom, and I loved seeing him on screen. Hannah as well, it's cool to see her kind of coming in as well. But the story, kind of like Anthony, you were saying too, it's just kind of weak here, and you're not sure if what you're really supposed to be rooting for, what's really kind of happening. It seems it's jumping from kind of point A to point B, or really missing point A and going right to point B. And you're just wondering like, well, what's important here? What am I supposed to be taking away from this moment? Yes, it looks pretty. Yes, the action's amazing. The stunts are crazy. Everything that looks is phenomenal. But why is this happening right now? And having a weaker story for the final film is kind of what the dampening effect of this movie kind of has.
Consciously or subconsciously, I think McHugh is trying to replicate Rogue Nation and Fallout and getting those highs in this film, because there's so many beats in this movie where you're just like, you could point at the screen saying, oh, that sounds familiar to what we've seen in Fallout or Rogue Nation, where he's like reusing it in a different way, but it's still like this little seed that was planted beforehand that you just can't help but like knock on it, saying, yeah, you were used before. And I felt like the supporting cast, which is a huge supporting cast, you got Pegg back, Atwell and Palm are all back as a team, but then you have the addition of Waddingham and Offerman and Tillman, but they don't really get fleshed out as much because they're just it's like he was trying to create his own Christopher Nolan, like, let's grab all these big guys and put them into this movie, but they're never really utilized in such a way where they stand out from the crowd. Where in Oppenheimer or any Christopher Nolan film where there's a large cast, even like a 2-second scene, they make an impact.
Yeah.
I really, really missed Elsa. And I think Rebecca, what she did with that character throughout the missions and the challenge she was for Ethan was missing in this movie. Like it just like she was one of the best parts of Mission. And I hate that they had to kill her off, or she didn't want to do it because they took so long and she had other things to do and she just didn't want to be a part of it anymore in that way. But she was so missed in this film. Like, it's just like, oh man, Elsa would have been great, because they just work hand in hand, where she's almost like this, she's this, secret agent, but she's like really deep and she'll do whatever it takes to get the mission done. And even Ethan, but he has his rules and he has his ethics, where Elsa's a little bit off. So it's just like, oh, I miss her, and I miss that dynamic between the two. And as much as Atwell is kind of the replacement, she's not. Like, she even took a step back in this film, where they use her as a catalyst, being this love interest, but she's not as big as what she was in Dead Reckoning.
Did you feel like she was a love interest though?
I don't know.
I think they were playing with it. They were definitely like, there were moments where just like, yeah, she's saving him, and these feel a little bit more like sensual moments.
Yeah, like,
again, not
she
getting
grabs
into spoilers
him
and stuff.
They never commit to it, right? They never.
But they don't commit to it, right?
And that's frustrating.
Yeah. And it's just like, but here's the thing though, I don't think it would have made sense to fully commit to it right after Ilsa just died this film before. But I think Anthony's so right. I definitely think Rebecca Ferguson's presence was missed, because I truly think that she's the only one who knew what Ethan was and who he was. One thing's for sure though, Tom Cruise and McHugh definitely have an Apple TV Plus subscription.
Oh yeah.
Because of Hannah Waddingham and Tramell Tillman are showing up. He's definitely watched Ted Lasso, and Severance, 100%. They have an Apple TV Plus subscription in that house for sure. Let's get to, I know we've been talking a lot more of some of the criticisms that we had of the story, and definitely there's a lot to talk about and unpackage, but let's get to what we truly loved. And I think we also, we speak critically to something because we also love something so much and we love the series so much. And I know for all of us, there are so many moments in this film that we just could not believe what we were watching. And again, my palms were sweaty for a lot of this film, but there's a sequence that involves a submarine, which we've set up in the first film, that if you are not good with closed, confined spaces and drowning in water, then this is going to be a really hard sequence for you to watch, because
or if you have to pee as well.
Standout moment. Or if you have to pee, which I did, and I never leave the movies to pee, but this film was doing everything it could to get me to pee myself while
Fleshy
watching
Meadows,
because,
man.
Dude, it was just like, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna hold on to this. I got this, no problem. I'm watching this movie. I'm the master of myself. I will not go. But then it's like water pouring in, holding breath. I'm like, no, dude, I have to go. So I fastest pee of my life. But it was also when he was just submerging into the water, so it was okay. Let's talk about some of these giant set pieces: submarine, biplane. Whoever wants to jump in first. What do you think would be the standout set piece, the one that you are going to remember most from The Final Reckoning, Shea?
There's a moment like that I think I was alluding to in the beginning, where there's a moment in a submarine, but also there's another sequence taking place in a cabin elsewhere. And these two moments are colliding with their intensity. And this is something that McHugh and Tom do such a good job of in every single Mission Impossible movie that they've done, where they're literally taking two moments and getting us at the exact same anxiety level that we're supposed to be at. I think about that moment all the time, and I think, when you look back to Dead Reckoning and the big stunt there being constantly told to us as the jump with the bike, I thought that was really cool. I don't know if it was the best stunt that we had seen Tom do, but this biplane sequence, goddamn, what a moment. Like, it lives up to what you've been being teased for so long.
Yeah, and I think, and that's the thing, right? I think Dead Reckoning, they were really kind of revealing the magic trick so much in the marketing. They put out that behind the scenes featurette like 6 months before the movie came out of him doing this jump. And obviously when you watch it, it's spectacular, but you're also just like, oh man, like I wish they held back. I wish I didn't see this. I wish it was an IMAX, because that didn't have an IMAX ratio that was adjusting. This one is going to have that. And that's why I can't wait for us to watch it in IMAX to really get those giant aspect ratio switching moments. But every moment, they've really played every moment in the trailer close to the chest with this. They do not want anything to be revealed. They want every moment to feel big, and it is thrilling. Boy, is it thrilling.
I was gauging which one is the most dangerous, because I was watching the featurettes on both of them, and I really think the underwater sequence was Tom's biggest challenge, just because you're breathing underwater, you're under this pressure, like, and you hear McHugh saying, like, at any point in time, if you don't feel safe, we'll stop the film, we'll get out of the water, and we'll, reshoot it or do it another time, because it's such a serious mission for even Tom to do at his age. And I'm like, which one is probably the most dangerous? And I think the water sequence is the biggest, because it's the longest too. They're both pretty long, but I think the water is the longest out of all of them. But I was just jaw to the floor with the plane sequence, because it's just, this guy's like hanging for dear life as the plane, like, think about it, if you were outside the plane as it's flying in the air, how would you feel? You feel crushed by wind.
As one is,
right?
I'd to be inside of the plane personally, but that's just me.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And Tom Cruise is just like, you see his body just being morphed as it's on the wing of a plane, as he's hanging on, and he's at one point he's breakdancing on the wing.
Yeah, he's swinging his body around.
Yeah, he's swinging through the connecting rods, and he's like, dude, it's like he's almost like he was dancing. I'm like, even to do that in midair. I think my biggest, and as much as this is shot with the IMAX aspect ratio, I wish they shot it with IMAX cameras, because I don't know what the logistics and the technical aspects of why they didn't do it that way, but I felt like those sequences, because they don't really, a lot of the sound design is done after the fact, and
right,
they could have utilized that camera, because it would. I
don't think IMAX loans out their cameras for 7 years, so that's a problem, right?
that might be true, man.
They're like 3 months only. Get back in here,
please. We need it. We need it for Nolan's film.
Nolan is shooting Oppenheimer. We need these back.
Yeah, but I could just imagine like just an IMAX shot, because it's so much brighter and clearer, and it will take that image and just enlarge it even past that aspect ratio. It'll just make it so much bigger. But hopefully in the future there are more movies and more action movies that start to utilize these IMAX cameras.
Definitely. I wanted to quickly call out the music in this, which I don't think was anything. The music was fine. I think it's Mission Impossible music, which is, again, as we talk about scores here on the show all the time. I absolutely love the music of this series. I think what Lorne Balfe did with Fallout and what he did with Dead Reckoning was fantastic. You look at the legacy of composers in Mission Impossible, from Danny Elfman to Hans Zimmer to Michael Giacchino to Joe Kramer. You've had a lot of great musicians, great composers lend their music to this. This time around, Lorne Balfe, his collaborators are working on it. So Max Arouche and Alfie Godfrey are doing the work, the music for this film, which I think a lot of it feels like music that we would have gone in Dead Reckoning. It follows that same motif, the same themes as which would you expect. I wish there was a little bit more something memorable to the music in this one, because I listened to the Dead Reckoning soundtrack a lot. I really love that soundtrack, and this one just felt like a little bit more of the same. Again, when you're watching something for the first time, it's kind of hard to gauge, but there wasn't anything really that stood out too much to me on the soundscape wise of this. But boy, does this movie look and sound incredible. I'm excited to listen now for the score more on the second watch. I really want us to rank the Mission Impossible films, but before we get to our ranking and final recommendations, I just want to ask you both, is there anything else you want to talk about with regards to The Final Reckoning?
The one thing that I want to say, and without spoilers, of course, is I'm not a huge fan of where the title sequence comes in this one.
Yes.
I know we talked about it with Dead Reckoning, how ballsy they were. I think dropping in 28 minutes into that movie. There's a moment in this movie where we're all just kind of like, yeah, that's where they should have done it. And it would have been so cool, because when it does come in, this one's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, that's nice, but like it didn't punch it like I thought it would. So that's it. I mean, Fallout does a great job of it too. So at least we have those moments.
Let's get to our official Mission Impossible rankings. I did not go back and listen to our Dead Reckoning review to see what the placements of everything was. That'll be interesting to kind of revisit maybe when we do a spoiler discussion for this film. But Shahbaz, I'm going to get you to start us off. Give us your ranking of the Mission Impossible films as of right now, including The Final Reckoning.
I've gone back and forth, and I've edited this list a couple times. I even edited now, obviously, by adding Final Reckoning into this, and I switched a couple movies around, as I've been rewatching them. But I would say at number 7, and I want to preface this by saying there are no bad Mission Impossible movies. Every Mission Impossible movie is fantastic. There are just some that are better than
Number
others.
7? Would it be number 8?
Number 8, sorry. I apologize.
Yeah.
Number 8 is Mission Impossible 2. At number 7, Mission Impossible 3. Number 6, I have Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. At number... Wait, what am I at? Number 5, 6? What am I at
Number 5 now.
Number 5.
You're at 5 now.
I have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Then I have Road Nation. Then I have the first Mission Impossible. Then I have Ghost Protocol. And then I have Mission Impossible Fallout as number 1. I think those numbers got skewed up somewhere, but what's important is I gave you my ranking.
You gave the ranking. There was a ranking that was given. Mine is very similar. Mine is at number 8, I have Mission Impossible 2. At number 7, I have Mission Impossible 3, which is still a very fun film. A very rewatchable Mission Impossible film. At number 6, as of right now, I have The Final Reckoning. And at number 5, I have Dead Reckoning. Will those kind of switch spots after I watch them again? 100%. At number 4, I have Mission Impossible number 1. I have at number 3, Rogue Nation. Number 2, Ghosts. And at number 1, of course, it's Mission Impossible Fallout. Anthony, how about you?
Very similar. Like as I'm listening to you guys, I'm like, oh yeah, like it makes sense to put them in these orders. Like Mission Impossible 2 being the weakest, and then Mission Impossible 3 for me, and then I feel like
Fallout. What?
No. Fallout. Like I can skip. Fallout is always going to be number 1 for me. Like Fallout reinvented Mission Impossible for me. But yeah, so Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3. I might do. I don't want. 1 is such a good film. Like it's okay. So we'll do.
I know, but here's the thing. Like, but before you finish, Anthony, in real talk, you look at these 8 movies, maybe with the exception of 2. Speaking for myself and for you guys as well too. Maybe these are all like 9, 9.5, 10 out of 10 movies.
Yeah.
Even a middle of the road middle of the list Mission Impossible is still a amazing 10 out of 10 movie. Like I'm looking at 5 and 6 on this list. Let's say if they are Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, those are all 9 out of 10 movies, 9.5, 10 movies. Like they're
still great movies.
Films. So it's so hard to rank them.
So Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3, Final Reckoning, Dead Reckoning, Mission Impossible 1, Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and Fallout is my number one.
Yeah,
Nice.
these are
We're
pretty much
also
all
close to each
similar
other.
lists.
We all just flipped one or the other above. That's really cool how we do that. Let's get to our final recommendation
Reckoning.
for the final reckoning. I love it. Shahbaz, I want to get you to once again start us off for the last time in the foreseeable future.
Wow.
The last time we will be talking about a review for Mission Impossible. Start us off.
I mean, there's definitely something that I want to say that I hope one day we can, in probably in a couple of weeks or so, really deep dive into these movies and talk about them spoilers galore, because there's so much. I know all three of us just kind of held back with talking about the final reckoning because we don't want to ruin the surprise for fans out there. But Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is that culmination of Ethan Hunt, is that great send off to such a fantastic character that we've grown up watching for nearly 30 years now. That is, oh my God, it's so gross to hear me say that. But what a fantastic way for McHugh, for Tom, for the entire team to really show us Ethan Hunt's legacy and all that he's been able to do. So with that, I would say Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning is a watch it. There's so much good from it. If you can ignore some of the story issues that kind of come with this movie, the stunts, the love of movie making, the spectacle of the theater, all of that is being honored here on full display. And you don't get movies like this anymore. You don't see movies like this anymore. And this is the reason for theaters to exist. So definitely go watch it.
I'm right there with you, Shahbaz. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is a thrilling and show-stopping cinematic event. I think Tom Cruise and McHugh give us everything, and this film is nonstop. It is nerve-shredding. My palms are literally sweating throughout this entire review just thinking about the moments that Ethan goes through and what Tom must have been going through while making this movie. I love that it goes deeper. I love that it goes darker. I don't think it necessarily always has to go bigger, but where I wish it hit really hard was the story. And I think they simplified the story a little bit more based on what we got from Dead Reckoning. And it didn't give enough time to the supporting cast or to some of the threads that are really introduced. And I really wish we got to see paid off. Definitely miss Rebecca Ferguson, though, of course, as Anthony said. But Mission Impossible will always deliver. The Final Reckoning 100% delivers. And it's the reason why we go to the movies. Movies like this are why you buy a ticket, you go to the movie theaters, and you just get lost and you fall in love with movies. Are there issues? 100%. And like Shea said, we're going to kind of dive into everything in this spoiler discussion in the coming weeks. But I cannot wait to watch this film again. I have tickets purchased for opening night in IMAX. And I am so excited. It feels like going into it like it's going to be my first time all over again. So I can't wait. Anthony, take us on home.
Ultimately, even though the storyline didn't speak to me, I still think it's the biggest thrill ride this year. It is the action movie of the season. And these are the movies we hunger to watch in the theater. And I think when I look back at the Mission franchise and the experience it brought to the theater, I think we will surely miss it.
We really are. I can't believe this is the Final Reckoning. I can't believe we're finally here. Is this the end of Mission Impossible? Well, we're going to talk all about that in a future episode, so stay tuned for all that and more. Thank you so much to Paramount Pictures for inviting us to watch the film, for inviting us to do the interviews. You'll be able to check those out this week, and leading up to the release of the film, we have some incredible episodes coming your way here on the Movie Podcast, and you do not want to miss anything. The summer movie season is here, and we are in full swing. Make sure you check out our show notes below for everything you need to know and more. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and this episode will self-destruct in 5 seconds.